Hey, everybody, welcome back to another episode of Artist Stories of Middle Georgia. I'm your host, Victor Rigoli, back in the studio. Got a special guest with me today, Arden Torres. Arden, thank you so much for being on the podcast.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm excited to be here.
Yeah, we met mid August at mutual friend artist solo exhibition in Perry, Georgia. And you're not actually from the Middle Georgia area, but you have some ties to Middle Georgia because you know Jana Spillers. And we met and everything. And, we just struck up a conversation and got to know you a little bit better while we were there and just thought, hey, I might reach out to you and have you on the podcast. And I appreciate you coming on and talking about you, who you are, where you're at, what kind of art you do, all that kind of fun stuff. So just sit back and relax, everybody, and enjoy the podcast today. So, Arden, why don't you tell us a little bit about your story? Where does it begin? How did you get started in doing art and creating art?
Very early on.
Okay.
So I, I mean, as most artists I think do, felt that pull towards creativity from a very, very early age. And so I started by drawing on the walls. And my parents said, that's not going to happen. We're not going to keep, allowing that to happen.
So
So
did you have a little crayon and what's going along the wall?
yes,
Crayon?
pencils, yeah, markers to draw. My brothers also. And so they were like, let's channel this, let's
Okay.
put that energy towards something more productive. And so, um, you know, that was my favorite thing as a kid growing up. You'd find me down at the crafting table, drawing, coloring. And once I got into my adolescent years, teenage years, I began painting and discovering mostly acrylics. So I started in acrylics. Thought this was really fun, really cool. There's still a whole world of other paints out there. So then I wandered into watercolors, and that was around the time that I did my first exhibition with the Jewel Collins Smith Museum in Auburn. That was about 15 years old when we did that. I had an acrylic piece and a watercolor piece displayed there for some time. And I continued, it was really kind of a cyclical thing for me. I would spend months and months painting, and then I would touch it again for half a year, and then I'd come back. And every time I came back, I just kind of thought, this is where I'm supposed to be. This is what I'm supposed to be doing. And when you tell people like, oh, I'm an artist, they kind of give you, they're like, okay, you're an artist. And I think that was kind of how people looked at me up until this year when I was able to attend my first residency in France. And now it's become more of a reality. Now I'm working, in many different mediums. I love oil painting primarily is my favorite.
Great. Me too. That's my favorite. Yeah.
Yes, I mean, I tell people all the time, when they ask me what I do, I talk about acrylics and watercolors. I'm like, they're great, but I'm a little bit of a control freak, and oils just give me the exact precision that I want.
Right.
So, I mean, this year is the year that I have really kind of started to get out into the world with my art and be recognized for it, which is really cool because it's not just been this year that I've been painting. It's been the buildup of the last 10 to 15 years of my life. And so now I am, it started, 4 or 5 years old, and now I'm here doing things that I never even saw myself doing. It's
Right.
a really cool journey.
That's awesome. You met Jana in France when you both were there. That was in 2024. Is that correct?
It was 2025. That's spring of this year.
Oh, of this year. Okay. Yeah, so I'm sure that was a wonderful experience for you to be able to do that. Gosh, I wish I could do something like that. Who knows? Maybe in the future I might be able to. So it's amazing that here you travel around the world and you're you're just across the state line in Auburn, Alabama. So you're not that far away from Middle Georgia.
Right.
And then you have friends now that are in the Middle Georgia area. And who would have thought that you travel over there and, oh, I'm from Middle Georgia. Oh, I'm from Auburn. You're just
Right.
that close to each other, just almost within the same state. I mean, Auburn's not too far over the state line, just a little bit. But anyway, yeah, that's just kind of cool, and it was just so neat to be able to talk to you a little bit. That night we were there at Clover Wine Merchant where Jana had her solo exhibition, and just get to know you a little bit better and everything. And we had those things in common as far as, I like oil too, and I've done a
Yeah.
little bit with gouache, and I have done a little bit with acrylic, but I had a friend of ours come over. She's a photographer, and she works with my wife and her husband, not her husband, but her father does watercolor paintings. He's not professional, but he could be. I mean, he's very, very good, and it's a whole different discipline, when you think about it. And I admire you for doing watercolor too, because it can be very, very difficult, from what I hear. One of these days, I may try to get into doing some watercolor painting, but we'll see. Uh, I don't know that I'll ever master oil painting, but maybe I'll branch out. And I hear too, and then maybe you could attest to this and share this, is that things that you might learn and do in watercolor might bleed over a little bit into how you create oil paintings and vice versa, because there's certain things that you might learn and maybe about technique or something along that line. And do you experience that or see where, hey, I've learned a little bit. Let me try something, in the other medium. Does that seem to work or help?
I do think it transfers very well. Sometimes I think it becomes a little bit of a hindrance because when you are so used to working in one medium, like right now, I primarily only do oil paints if it's in my free time. Um, so I'm very I'm in the habit of my oil painting process. Now, if I were to take some watercolors and sit them down next to me right now, I'd have to I'd have to change it up a little bit because you can't work with watercolors the exact same way you work with oils, or it's
Right.
really washed out and fuzzy. And so I think you learn a lot about your composition and your colors and the way that you are putting what's in your brain onto the paper. I think
Hmm.
translates
Hmm.
very well across all your mediums that you have. I
Right.
think it's the tools that you're using, getting really comfortable with them in your hand and having them work more as an extension of you rather than fighting with them on the paper.
Right. Right. Now, are you full time doing this, or is this still part time? Or are you
It's still part time. I work a full time job, and then I come home and it's my other full
paint, and
full
paint?
time.
You know, every
Mm-hmm.
night, all night. Yeah.
In the evenings and the weekends, yeah, anytime I have a free moment, usually if I come home and it's been a long day, maybe I'm not in the studio but I'm drawing in bed. It's
Right. Right.
it's just something that I've in the last couple of years like hit a groove with, and it's not a good day if I haven't created something, even if it's small.
Right. Right. Yeah. Getting those, excuse me, those brush miles in.
Yes,
Uh,
exactly.
working and looking at your schedule and being able to manage your time. I know you're probably very productive and use your time wisely because you do have a full time job, and so you may think, says, okay, what is it that I need to focus on tonight, because your time is limited. From the time you get home, you've got things you got to do. You got to cook dinner. You got to do all this stuff. Maybe you got to wash clothes that night, grocery shop, or whatever. But then I've only got X amount of time before I have to go to bed and get up and do it all again the next day, right? So it's like, okay, I got to be able to, you know, prioritize and manage my time wisely in order to be able to devote the time necessary to your art. So,
Absolutely. And
yeah,
it is time kind of you get home from a full day of work, and my job is I love my job. It's not a creative job. So switching gears between, doing this very scientific, like data driven job versus creativity is completely, it's a very drastic change. And so a lot of times, I'll have a painting I need to finish or something, commissions due, or I'm sitting there and I'm looking at it. And I'm like, I don't know, that switch isn't going to happen today.
yeah, yeah,
But once I have the time and have the space to kind of make that little change, it's really nice.
yeah. Yeah, you probably looks like you're sitting there in your studio and everything, and so yeah, I can imagine. Well, before I retired from my full time job working in IT for a number of years. I would work during the day, and of course, when I started painting, it was in January of 2020, and so I'm still working full time, and then 2 months later, we're working from home. So but working, the 8 hour day or 9 hour day, and then getting off, and then saying, okay, I got a family time. I've got those things I need to do, and then devoting time at night, and especially on the weekends, because I remember early on watching tutorials and trying to paint and learn and everything till like 2 or 3 o'clock in the morning on Friday night, Saturday morning, or Saturday night, Sunday morning, and just learning, because you don't want to take away, and I didn't want to take away, from family and stuff like that. So it's like, okay, when can I get in the studio? And I'm sitting in what studio I have now, but when I first started off, I had like a little 8 by 9 foot uh, room off of my garage, which was kind of a shop that I turned into a studio. And so it's going out in there, and then it's okay. And it's hard sometimes to shut off what you were doing during the
Yes,
day, from your job, and because you have to spend a little bit of downtime and kind of unwind and everything, and then say, okay, now it's after dinner, let me go out and do what I need to do in the studio and work on something, or learn, or paint, or
absolutely.
finish up something. So yeah, it's challenging. I admire you. I mean, it, you know being able to manage your time, like I said earlier, just commend you for that, because as it takes a lot of time, because a commission piece may take 20, 30, 40 hours to do. You
Right.
know, how do I fit that in a week or 2 weeks, 3 weeks? And so, yeah,
Absolutely.
that's so I would say that, because one of the questions I try to ask artists is, what do you find most challenging? And I can see that being very challenging for you,
Yes,
so,
absolutely.
you know, so is there anything else that you find challenging about being an artist, other than, your time management?
Oh, all of it. It's not for the faint of heart, for sure. If you're gonna decide to be an artist, and I don't think many people decide. I think they just are.
Yeah, yeah,
But
yeah. I like that. Uh huh.
I think one of the big things, and yeah, a lot of people who know me have heard me talk about this before, but and then this is, I think, across many artists, is perfectionism, because you never, and I'm
Yeah.
sure you've heard this a million times interviewing
Right.
artists, but you have this image of what your work should be, and or you stare at it for 10 hours at a time, and then it starts looking weird, and you don't, you know. Um, but the idea of having something, that is not fitting exactly what you have in your head can just drive you crazy, because you're looking at it, you say, I can see it, I don't know how to get it there.
Right.
Um, and then it's almost as if you're failing to express exactly what you were hoping to express,
Mm-hmm.
in a way, if you can't get that, because when you have people look at it, it's one thing if you're doing it for yourself. You did that sketchbook that you shove away in the closet, nobody ever looks at it, that's one thing. But you have something going to an exhibition, or you're selling something, or you're commissioning. um, I think we have this tendency to put our own eyes in other people's heads, and think to ourselves, they're going to look at this, they're going to notice this line that's out of place, they're going to notice these colors that aren't perfect. And I think kind of where that comes from for me is, this is kind of a small town. The arts community is growing here, but it is still um, very limited, I would say, in the sense that you don't get the same diversity in art here as you would in a bigger city.
Right.
So there's very much a preferred style, preferred subjects, preferred mediums. We're in Auburn, so people love paintings of the football stadium.
Yeah, I was going to say football town, football community.
Yes,
They love their Tigers or War Eagles or whatever they want to call themselves. But yeah,
exactly.
I can certainly relate to that. Yeah,
And so it's very much a kind of vibe of,
it's a big challenge. It really
yeah,
is.
because if they don't see exactly what it is immediately, or people almost want you to present exactly what it means when they're looking at it, and we all know that art is not about just looking at something and saying, oh, it's this, it's about saying, what do I feel when I look at it? What does it mean to me? How am I interpreting it? And so I think from putting my art out into the community from such a young age um, made me very particular about making it perfect so that people, it would carry me further. People could look at it and say, I know what that is. That was what people wanted to see. And so as an adult, I think in, having traveled more and put my art out more further, I guess, than just Auburn, one of the challenges that I've had is being able to express a little bit more through my work, to have it be a little bit less blatant right in front of you, and there are some different things in there that provide it, a subjective meaning. And some people look at my work and they see one thing, and then other people see another thing. And I like that. I love that because I think that's how it should be,
And it should be that way. And I was talking to an artist the other day about that, and a question I want to ask you in a minute, or I'm going to ask you this now, but give it some thought, but answer in a minute is, does every piece of art you create have to have a story behind it? So think about that for a minute. But I know that, when you put work in a gallery and there's two people standing there, one person can say, I just don't get this. What in the world's going on? The other one says, what? You don't see that? You don't see this or whatever it is? Don't you feel whatever? And, there's just two people standing there, but they're impacted in a different way. And that's what's great about art is it's in the eye of the beholder. I mean, what some person may find is just a wonderful piece of art. The other may find, well, I think my grandchild or my little toddler could do better than that. They just don't understand it, kind of thing. But do you think that every piece of artwork that you create or every piece of art that is created must have a story behind it? There's no right or wrong answer, so.
I know it's a good question. I I'm of the belief that it doesn't have to have a story, but I think that they all do. I've absolutely sat down to draw or paint, just to get my hand, like just to get moving, and just to maybe before I go and actually work on something that does have a story. But any way I spin it, anything that I've worked on is this kind of like a collection of the thoughts that I was having while I was working on it. It very much reflects the state that I was in, I believe. And so I don't think that every piece that I have, I could stand there and explain to somebody who came up and looked at it. I wouldn't be able to say, oh, I painted this because of that, and this is a symbolism.
Right.
And sometimes I'd say, this is what I intuitively was led to draw or to paint. And then I look back on it and I'm like, oh, okay, this was, very reflective of what I was experiencing at that moment. Maybe I was, upset about something that came out in more dynamic poses, or feeling fine. It was just like a nice little sketch, So I think they each kind of speak for themselves, have their own journey, but I definitely don't attach a whole lot of meaning to, intentional meaning to everything that I.
Right. Yeah, I agree with you. I kind of lean toward no, it doesn't have to have a story behind it. Some pieces do, especially those artists that draw upon a lot of their life experience in creating their art. Maybe it's happy, sad, traumatic experiences or whatever, and it's manifested in their artwork. Painting landscapes, and I love the coast of Georgia, and I wouldn't say that every time I paint the marshland or the coast of Georgia or whatever, there's a particular story that I can tell. Oh, I was at this place, that place, whatever. But it has meaning to me, and I could share that,
Yes.
with why did I paint this? Because it this is how it speaks to me. This is how because when I go down to the coast of Georgia, go to Jekyll Island or St. Simon's, and just getting to Brunswick before I get to those islands, it's almost like nature and the Spartina and the marshes are just calling to me, welcome home, you've come back, kind of thing. It can be kind of emotional, it's just really neat when you think about it. Are there any particular artists that just really inspire you that you just, man, I just love their work and try to maybe incorporate some of their style or their into your artwork?
So Jaina, actually, funny enough, is really somebody that I look up to a lot
Mm-hmm.
in my painting, just because she's got such a beautiful, like loose, expressive style while still being able to capture such accuracy in her subjects.
Right.
And from the moment I met her and saw her work, I was just amazed by that, you
Yeah.
know. And that's something that I have really strived to kind of accomplish in my work, is kind of branching out, because I do get a little bit boxed in. So one of the things that I really admire about her is her freedom in her work, you
Mm-hmm.
know. Um, so she is somebody that I very much, I mean, from the first painting that I saw of hers is like, this is everything that I, you know, could only ever hope to be. But I also, there are a couple artists that I've been following for a long time. One of them is, I believe he pronounced, his name is Noah, and I believe he pronounced his last name as Verrier. But he does these still impressionistic still lives of modern food. So he'll do, but just in the most masterful, beautiful traditional style.
Okay.
And so you'll see this, you know, stunning painting. Looks like it should be framed in ornate gold and hung in a house somewhere, and it's of, you know, a McDonald's meal or
Oh
something.
wow.
But he
Yeah.
just does it with such, his eye for colors is incredible,
Yeah.
and you can see his brush strokes, and there's lovely. So I'd say I do look up to his style a lot as well. Um,
Email me his name, so because I'd like to look up some of his
Absolutely.
artwork and check it out. Yeah, that's cool. Yeah, I like some of the old artists, Monet and Van Gogh are the two that I really like the most. I think Claude Monet especially.
Yeah.
I don't know if it's because my dad's name was Claude, but it's just I loved his style, and Van Gogh just saw things
Yes.
different from everybody else. I think he just saw colors different. I mean, he created and used colors different, in his paint. I love the thickness of the paint
Absolutely.
that he used and everything.
Another. I'm
Yeah.
sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off.
No, 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 no problem, no problem. But yeah, I draw some inspiration from them. In fact, I've got some prints of some Monets in my studio, and I'll look at them from time to time. And I've actually, my wife had me paint a couple of paintings for her of Claude Monet copies, and I've just got them in my home, and I learned so much, and they're pretty close. I did pretty good, if I say so myself. But I learned so much from doing those, and I need to do more of that, kind of work. But yeah, and you can learn from not that, and I'm not gonna sell them or anything, but you can learn from other artists just by copying their work and their
Mhm.
style, you know.
Yeah,
So yeah,
absolutely. It really, I mean, it pushes you to get out of your own habits. You know, when
yeah,
you're
get
trying to
out of
imitate
that
somebody
comfort
else's
zone.
style.
Yeah, hmm, yeah, yeah. Um, so tell me a little bit about some of the artwork that you create. Or do you create things from just what you think or feel or envision in your mind, or you sketched out, or do you use a photo reference of something, or how do you go about what is your process?
Yeah, absolutely. So, um, I I have a very hard time envisioning things in my head. I don't have a very strong mental image of anything. So
Thank
once we
you for saying that. I thought I was just the only one
you
that
know,
felt
I can't picture things. Like after this, I won't be able to picture your face in my mind. I'll know who you are, but
right.
I can't see it, you know? And so that was actually kind of something I struggled with for a long time as an artist, because it's, you know, it's essentially a type of blindness where you can't, you know, find you can't envision something on a paper until you actually put that pencil on paper and
Right.
make it, you know, but how are you going to make it if you can't envision it?
Yeah.
And so for a long time, photo references were my, you know, that was how I created. But I kind of started running into this, and you know, for for a hobby, it was fine. You know, I could paint something and hang it in my room. But now I'm kind of, you know, more of the mindset of I'm an artist. I have things to express,
Hmm.
and if I'm using somebody else's photos, and I'm not knocking using a reference picture at all, I
Right.
still do it all the time, but it almost feels like it's invalidating because it's not coming from me directly. You know, it's somebody else saw this moment, captured it, and now I'm recreating it. And so what I have started doing recently is I don't know if you can see my little white paper up there above my painting. I've started just sketching things out on paper first, and I'll do it as many times as I need to, you know, put the basic shapes down and just kind of look at it and shape it on the paper from there. And then I'll take that and turn it into a painting. And it's like my own, you know, reference.
Right. Right.
Um, Now, I love life models and plein air and things like that. And I do feel like that's a little, you know, it's not a photo reference, it's what I'm looking at. So I feel
Right. Right.
more more artistic, if you will, when I'm doing that. So I love going and just sitting in a bar or restaurant by myself and sketching.
Hmm.
And then sometimes those will turn those into paintings too, depending on how much I like them, how well they come out. But my subjects right now, I do a lot of animal symbolism
Hmm.
because I've kind of hit this groove where I'm painting a lot of somewhat I guess interpretive things where if I look at it, this is what it means to me, but I also want somebody else to look at it and feel something different. You know, what is it? Almost like a Rorschach test. Um, and so I really liked the animal. So I love painting portraits. First, don't get me wrong, but I loved the animal symbolism and the animals that I've been painting because I feel like when people look at those, they immediately say to me, this is how it makes me feel like this is like a very angry painting. This is a very, you know, expressive. And when it's a person, I think we identify too much with the, you know, we start putting our social norms into play there. So, you know, you look at a painting of someone crying and you think, you know, okay, well, they're sad about something. But you look at a painting of, you know, like a crow protecting its babies from a fox and you're like, oh, like that's so sad, you know, and like you feel it in your chest versus just identifying, oh, that's that person's sad, you know. And so that's kind of what I strive to I think encompass with my work is if I look at it, like can I recreate that feeling internally? um and that I think is kind of what it's kind of, you know, it's a cycle because that's what sparks the painting in the first place, and then I look at it and I can say this is real, I can touch it, this is the feeling, you know, on a canvas.
Right. Right. You mentioned plein air painting. Do you get out and do a lot of plein air painting, or try to?
I try to. It's mostly these days sketching a lot more.
Okay.
But I've got my, you know, my little plein air easel, and I've been now it's football season. People love football. Hoping to go down on campus and do. I'd love to do some plein air, like just out on campus during a game day. I think that'd be really neat. Um,
Are
but
there are there many places in that area, in Auburn area, that are just begging to be painted? And, you know, that like parks or rivers, streams, that kind of thing. I'm not
yeah,
that familiar with Auburn, so yeah.
it's a beautiful little town. There are some wooded areas that are really nice, but the downtown, the university area is just stunning. It's got a certain energy to it, especially on game days that you really just don't feel anywhere else. It's a very strong sense of community, and the buildings kind of provide a little bit of a like a hometown feel, you know.
Uh-huh.
But then there's just so many people, and everybody is most people are in a good mood, and it's just a bright, vibrant environment. You know,
Great.
it's
Yeah, it's great.
everybody is friendly, everybody's family there, everybody's, you know, just happy to be alive on a game day. So
Well, that's the way it is up in Athens, where the University of Georgia is at. So my youngest son is in school there. So, but yeah, it's that way. And my wife lived in Athens for a while after she graduated college, but she didn't go there. But yeah, I kind of like that. And see, that's the bad thing about Warner Robins. I mean, you came to Perry, and Perry has a little downtown area. Okay, but Warner Robins doesn't have that. Warner Robins, no, you know, I've been in Warner Robins. I grew up in Macon, which is just a little north of here. And then my wife and I moved down to Warner Robins when we started. When we were talking about and planning to have kids, we decided to move to Warner Robins and Houston County because the school system was so much better. And so we've been down here for about 29 years, 28, 29 years now. And but Warner Robins grew as a result of the Air Force Base, Robins Air Force Base. And so it just started having little stores and things like that, and it began to sprawl. And so they never really built a downtown like you would have maybe in Auburn, Athens, or in Perry. And I miss that. I wish we had that. And they have a plan in place, and they're starting to work on that now to where they're going to try to build some type of I'll say downtown or area to kind of bring people together and have kind of some type of community.
Yeah.
And I'm hoping that they'll do a little bit more for the arts, even though we do have in Warner Robins the Fine Arts Society of Middle Georgia. And unfortunately, they got booted out of their building because all those old buildings are being torn down, and this is where they're going to build up this nicer area of town. But yeah, my wife and I do go down to Perry because we like that feel, that downtown homey feel, and people
Yes.
are nice. And while there's not a lot to go out and paint in Middle Georgia, I mean, we're not in the mountains, we're not at the coast, we don't have them. There is a river that comes through Macon, but I don't want to sound negative, but I wouldn't go paint it. But anyway, you know, so you really don't have any place. But the architecture is really deep in downtown Macon, and so if you're that kind of painter, it's ideal for that. And it's just wonderful. I mean, there's some beautiful homes, and even in Perry has that quaint little downtown homey feel to it, which I like. And who knows, I may branch out and go down there and take my plein air box and just set up on the street, the corner, and just try to paint some of the buildings, and just see how it goes. But
Absolutely.
yeah,
One of my favorite things about doing things like that, and I get even if I'm just drawing somewhere, is that people love to come talk to people who are creating art out, in the middle of everything, and you meet so many really neat and also sometimes a little strange people. But you really you just get so many different conversations that you never would have had. And it's on one hand you're painting, you're creating what you're seeing, but you're also just being out in the world and establishing these really neat connections. And I think that also can be kind of considered a form of art, the human interaction.
Yeah.
So that's one of my favorite parts about it. That's why I like weddings also. It's when I'm
I was
painting.
going to ask you, don't you do some live paintings or at weddings and things of that nature? So yeah, how's that experience?
I love it. Oh my gosh, it's so fun. I like weddings anyway. I like pretty things. Weddings are always gorgeous. I started wedding painting in early 2024,
Okay.
and had some wonderful clients who really, after I did, because when I started, I said, I don't. This is really cool. I don't know that I can do this for you guys, so I'm going to do it for free starting out, just to build my portfolio. If you hate it, you haven't lost any money, you have a painting that you can look at and say, oh, okay. But it ended up going a lot better than I kind of thought it might. And I just loved it. Everybody at weddings is, they're, I've never met anybody who is anything less than kind. And all of the brides that I've worked for have been incredibly sweet. Very, very supportive of what I've been doing. And I really just recently established it as a legitimate, a service or business rather than, oh, show up at your wedding and paint it,
Right.
And so one of my favorite things about weddings also is that I get to travel a lot for them. So I've been up to, North Alabama all the way to New Orleans. And
Oh, wow.
That's one of the perks for sure. I love to travel and go different places. And it's just a cool, when you're painting at home, you can take breaks. You can kind of sit back and look at it. There is an extra added pressure for wedding painting because everybody's watching.
Yeah.
Everybody wants to see how it's going to turn out,
Right.
kind of see people's reactions as they're coming up. So it is a little bit nerve wracking, but once you can figure out really how to get in the zone and just work, it's almost a Zen thing because you have no choice but to keep working, and so you're just painting.
Yeah.
I work better under pressure though, I think, so it doesn't bother me too much. I know what I'm doing. I know that I'm gonna have fun doing what I'm doing, and that's
awesome.
That's enough for me to say, like I'm pretty confident in what I can do.
That's great. Yeah. That's something I haven't ventured out doing yet. Maybe one day. I don't know. I think I got to get out and do a little bit more plein air painting first, But do you take the painting back into the studio to put final touches on it before it's shipped out or whatever?
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah.
So most of it's done by the end of the wedding. You can see, if there's extra people in there, the bride and groom are always going to be done. You'll see the general vision for the painting by the end of the night. And then I bring it back to my studio. Usually I do kind of like just a couple touch-ups. I really try not to mess with it too much because everyone that I brought back so far, I set it down for a couple days. They don't look at it. And then I come back and I say, okay, I'm okay with this. I like this one. I do send it to the brides. I say, is there anything that you want me to change or any, little alterations that you want to make? And occasionally they have like little things that they're like, oh, could you add this? Could you change that? And it's fine. And then I'll varnish it there at my studio.
Okay.
And then deliver it.
Okay. That's so cool. Yeah.
It's a really good time.
I bet. And I'm sure you meet a lot of people, and who knows, you may establish some contacts where people reach out to you and said, hey, we're getting married in 6 months or whatever, and we'd love for you to come and paint at our wedding.
That's usually how I've been getting clients because I wasn't advertising my wedding painting for a while. It was just word of mouth, and all the clients that I've gotten have been like, oh, I was at this person's wedding and I really want you to do mine, or the mother of this bride reached out to me for your information, or things like that.
That's so cool. Yeah. That's great that you're able to do that. I'd be so nervous. And of course,
the first time.
Yeah, I'd have to take some pictures to come back in the studio and kind of compare and said, okay, have I got proportions right? Have I got, because the camera, as you know, doesn't capture the true color of the scene, whether that's indoors or outdoors. But, being there on site, you could probably make some mental notes and maybe some handwritten notes of certain things, and then, take that back and put finishing touches on it and that kind of thing. So, how successful has selling your artwork been? You kind of selling some artwork, and if so, do you have a website? Using social media?
I do. So, as for selling my art, I have because it's not my current full-time job.
Right.
What I tend to do is more like sale events where I will open up purchasing for originals, prints, and then just do it all in bulk. So if people want a piece, that's their time to buy. And then that also kind of gives me time between. Actually, I need to have one coming up. I've been starting to plan because I did one in the spring going into the summer. It was a good turnout. But it gives me time in between to kind of build my inventory up and decide, what are people interested in? What are people not interested in? Which usually I can gauge by my social media interaction.
Right.
And people who follow me on Instagram probably just think I'm chronically online. But if you're an artist and you are trying to get your name out there, it's so important to have that platform where, you're interacting with people, you're putting things out, because that's the first place people are going to go now to see,
That's true.
And so I do my best to kind of like keep that balance of I'm not constantly responding to messages or on social media, but if I have things that, I know is going to help establish my business, and it's going to, be out there for people to see. So I started on Instagram, and it really just started as a funsies, this is my work kind of deal. And then it got bigger and people started, actually paying attention to my work. And so it turned into a pretty legitimate account. And from there, I said, I had a lot of people ask me, do you have a website? And I was like, oh, it's kind of a lot of work to build a website and keep up with that. But then I said, you know what? I probably need to build a website. So uh, once people started really asking how to get in touch with me, how they could hire me, commission me, really once I decided, okay, like this has to take a more professional turn.
Right.
Um, so I actually just launched my website yesterday, and I've had good reception from it. So I'm very excited about that. It's just the name of my business, masontoro.com. And it has a little bit of my work, like a gallery, information about the weddings that I do, kind of a biography, how the business got started, what the concepts of it were, and the contact information for people to get in touch with me. And so usually Instagram, if I'm gonna sell, it's gonna be on Instagram. That's like
Yeah.
the big one for people. So they can go on there, they can just scroll through, see what you have. They're interested,
Right.
message you, But yeah.
That's great. I want to include your social media platforms, contacts, that kind of thing in the notes. So email that to me, and also your email me your website address so I can include that as well, because I like to do that for the artists. It's more. It's not only just telling your story, but I want to help promote you and your artwork as well. And so people see this and they can say, "Hey, you can contact her at," and here's your Facebook, Instagram, website, email if you want to share that kind of thing. And so I have that in my. I do it too. I put it down toward the bottom. It says you can contact Victor at, and I've got all this other stuff listed. Kind of thing. So, but yeah, just trying to get the word out there to help support you in your artwork and your journey, and helping hopefully to sell more art.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
So, uh, yeah, my pleasure. That's like I said, it's one of the purposes of doing this podcast. There's so many artists out there, and I'm learning every day. I mean, art. I have my own personal Facebook page, and then I have a Victor Galifine Art Facebook page, and then I have the Art Stories of Middle Georgia Facebook page, and Instagram, and all that too. And YouTube, and what have you. And so it's a lot. It's a lot to keep up with,
It
but
is.
just trying to get the word out there. And you're right, using social media. I think I've sold more artwork off social media than I have off my website.
Mm-hmm.
And then, the website hosting company that I use, they're always having all kinds of little marketing webinars free that artists, can attend. And one of the things they said, about having a website is it's a good place for people to go to see some of your other work. But most of the time, they're going to contact you through social media and say, "Hey, I'm interested in this piece," and then you can work it out and say, "Okay, well, I've got that up on my website. You can go there and purchase it or whatever and get a print." So it's kind of a thing in the background that can be used, but it's not always, you know, the thing that everybody goes to.
Yeah,
So,
absolutely.
but
One of the
yeah,
things that they kind of told us at the chateau when we were, because we had some lectures on the business of art, how to be successful as an artist, how to
mhm,
sell yourself, um, which were wonderfully informative. But one of the things that really stuck with me from that was taking a day out of your work week to focus primarily on your social medias and your
yeah,
internet presence,
yeah, yeah,
because a lot of artists, and it's easy to take pictures of good work, but if you take pictures of good work and it's in bad lighting, it's in a bad angle, it's
yeah,
still not going to present across a screen as it would in real life. And so had to, and I really, this is funny, because I have such a large social media, facet of my life right now, but I really don't love social media. And for for me to have to, set up the lights and get, everything to where I could create content for my Instagram, I kind of looked at myself and I was like, wow, how did I end up here? But it really does make such a difference when you're presenting in a professional a professional way, across Instagram. You've got the lighting set up and you know how to interact with people. It really truly does wonders for your business as an artist, because people don't want to, immediately look and say like, wow, I really want to follow this art. They want to look at it and say, this is a really aesthetically pleasing appearance on my screen. I want to keep that. Um, so
It
that
can
is
be,
definitely a balance you have to find.
yeah, that can be very challenging. Being able to do that, especially taking good quality photos of your artwork. Because you can take a real good photo, but then compare it to the actual in-person artwork. There's no comparison.
Yes,
No
absolutely.
comparison. So, but at least somebody gets an idea of what it looks like and that kind of thing. So, do you have any shows upcoming? Are you in any galleries or anything like that? Any exhibitions that you want to share with folks?
Yeah, actually, this I'm so glad you asked. So this is the first time that I am announcing it officially, but I am going to be having a solo exhibition in Opelika in
Okay.
December this year.
Okay.
So it will be at the Torino Club, which is above Piedmont on Piedmont, and I will have several originals there for sale as well as some prints, and plan to hopefully meet a lot of people, kind of present my work to the community, and see where it goes from there. So
Good.
that'll
You
be
heard it. You heard it first here, folks. So yeah, folks, make a note of that and get out and support her in her efforts there as an artist and selling your artwork. So congratulations on that. So yeah,
thank you
that's
so much.
awesome. All righty. I got some questions for you that I
Absolutely.
want to ask that I'm going to start asking other artists here. Okay. So nothing real hard. What is your favorite holiday and why?
Oh man, my favorite holiday is Christmas, hands down. Um,
Okay.
I love Christmas because and this you probably have noted this is a recurring theme in my answers, but the environment that it produces, within the community, I love the feeling that it kind of creates when you've got Christmas music playing in all the stores, you've got the decorations up on all the houses. It kind of feels like this. I don't know, like a little bit of a stronger sense of community, but it's also a very nostalgic time, I guess. And
It
there's
is. It is. Yeah. Yeah. Um, when do you start listening to Christmas music? So I have to
uh,
ask you that now that Christmas is your favorite holiday. So
well, if we're talking socially appropriate, then and then right after Thanksgiving, but sometimes as early as August. So just here and
I'm
there.
with you. I'm with you. I've been there before. When I was working full time, usually September is when I would start at work listening to Christmas music. I'd have little earbuds in or headset on, and people knew he's in there listening to Christmas music. You know. But I've had some on recently. In fact, before I brought you on stage, I had Alexa playing some. Hopefully, she didn't hear that, and I think she did. She just said that Alexa, cancel. Alexa, cancel. See, she heard it. But anyway, I had her playing Christmas music. So, so,
Well,
but
I'm
anyway, it was jazz Christmas, which is
that's
really
even better.
cool. Yeah. But yeah, I usually all of October, November, and of course December. So I was starting a little earlier this year. But, okay, next question: if you could be a cartoon character, who would you be and why?
Oh my gosh, cartoon character. I was not prepared for this one. Okay. Um,
You're the guinea pig because I'm trying out some of these questions to get
okay.
your response, but then also testing them, see how they go.
Oh goodness. Well, I'm thinking. I mean, off the top of my head, thinking about cartoon characters, the first things that come to mind are Looney Tunes,
Yeah.
like old Looney Tunes.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
But I don't know. I would say, gosh, maybe Schrodinger from Charlie Brown, the one that plays the piano.
Oh yeah. 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 Yeah.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
Okay. That's cool. All right. If you could have a superpower, what would it be?
The superpower.
Yeah,
I'd have to I'd have to probably go with I feel like shape shifting would have to be the one because you could say like flying or being invisible, but if you can shape shift, you can do any of it. It's got a lot more diversity there.
I like that. I haven't heard that answer before, but some people say, "Oh, I would have X-ray vision, or I'd super strength, or flying, or whatever." But yeah, I like that shape shift. You could move, change the shape, and do all kinds of things. Okay, two last questions here.
Okay.
What's your favorite color?
My favorite color is yellow.
Yellow. Okay.
Yes, absolutely.
Okay. And describe for me your ultimate dream art studio. What would you
Ooh.
have? Where would it be? Whatever.
So, number one, I'd have to be able to staple into the walls because um, that's how I've been working recently, and just really can't go back from that. I don't like easels. I actually kind of hate them. So,
Do you really? Yeah.
yeah.
Okay.
Um, so somewhere I could staple into walls, but ideally it would have a lot of space, a lot of natural light. Because right now the space that I'm currently in is the converted garage space. So I've
Okay.
got one little window, in the door, and other than that, I have to use my lights. And I'm such a big natural daylight person. It really helps me like regulate, my sleep and wakefulness, and um, I feel like it's just better for you when you're not, in a room where artificial light. But ideally, in a big city somewhere, I would love to be able to, have a studio with windows where I can overlook, a city and kind of work in my own little space. I love being around people, but not with people.
Yeah.
So the big cities where you can hear everything going on, you can see everything going on, but you're by yourself in your space. I love that. And I feel like I draw a lot of inspiration from people and their energies, so anytime I'm in a big city, that's just I'll sit and draw all day, never get tired of it.
That's so cool. I like that. Yeah, I'm in a really they called it a bonus room, even though we used it as a bedroom for one of the kids for many years, and it's above the garage. And I've got behind me here one light or one window, put it that
Mm-hmm.
way, and it's narrow, so it's kind of long. I would I would love to have something 2 to 3 times this size. And you're right, maybe one whole wall, nothing but natural light,
Mm-hmm.
all that kind of stuff. Tall enough to where I could do some type of big canvas if I wanted to.
Definitely
Kind
the
of.
space. Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely. Because when you're working, I mean, before this isn't huge, but I love it because it's mine, and it's big enough for what I need. But before this, I was working out of an attic,
Mhm.
and I could if I move my arm around, I could hit the wall behind me. And so
Yeah.
the only space that I had was on my desk, and now that's a big reason I wasn't working on big canvases for the longest time either. It's just because I didn't have the space. So
Right.
having the walls where you can keep multiple big pieces up and just work on
Yeah.
them differently
Work
as you
on it.
please, that's the great.
Yeah. Yeah, I feel like I'm constantly stepping over things in this studio. Although there used to be a full size bed up here and a chest of drawers up here too, and so that took up space. And so when my middle child moved out, got an apartment a few months ago, I moved all that furniture down there. We repainted the room, we fixed it up, we got that furniture down there. But then I've got stuff I over there cluttered back up again. But I have to kind of purge. But I like to have a lot of art supplies on hand. I have a lot of canvases and things like that. I have a lot of brushes, a lot of paint, that kind of thing. And so I've got drying racks and what have you. And so, yeah, if I had like twice as much room, I know an artist guy here in Warner Robins. He's actually in the military, but his living room and front entrance to his house is his art studio. And he's married and got kids, and some of them are grown. And when I first went over to his house and walked in, I thought I'd go into some little bedroom or little place off of the garage or something like that. You walk in, and boom, there's his art studio, huge easel, everything. my wife would not go for that. No, you know. In fact, when I started painting, she let me put my little desktop easel on the kitchen table, and 2 months later, she said, "It's got to go. You got to find somewhere else." And so I gradually moved to different places, and I'm up here. If I were to win the lottery, I'd move to the coast, and I'd have a studio that's probably at the house, but then I'd also have and own an art gallery too, that had a little studio in it. But yeah, that's me dreaming. But anyway, but yeah,
Yeah.
this has been great. I've thoroughly enjoyed getting to know you a little bit better and talking to you and having you share your story. And it's just been fabulous. I want to thank you so much for coming on
Thank
the
you. I
podcast.
appreciate it.
Yeah,
It's
and
been
I
super
wish you the
fun.
best. And hopefully our paths will cross again. If you ever get over here in Middle Georgia, if you happen to come see Jana, let me know. Maybe we could all do lunch or something like that. And catch up
Absolutely.
again. But like I said earlier, I do want to include your contact information if you're willing to share that. I want people to be able to reach out to you if they have any questions or they want to see more of your artwork and that kind of thing. So we'll include that in the show notes or notes and description below the video on YouTube. So share that with me. But thank you again so much, Arden, for being my guest on the podcast today. And thanks everybody for tuning in. And please like and subscribe to the channel so you won't miss out on any content. We got more stuff coming out here soon. Got some more interviews lined up. So anyway, take care, everybody, and we'll catch you guys in the next episode. Take care.